Everyone, and welcome to blog 40 of Tackle the Feelings Before the Behavior. And today's blog is called Emotions and Spirituality. And I've been wanting to put this blog out for a while because I think this, for me, is at the heart of why I'm doing this in the first place. And even though I work in this all week as a practitioner, I still feel I want to do some of this stuff on the weekend and put this message out there to people and to parents in particular, about emotions and emotional regulation, and that inner child that you have that was traumatized. Most of us are going around with traumas and unhealthy relationships with certain emotions, and that filters into our relationships and how we see the world and how we feel in the world, and it prevents us from things like happiness and joy and excitement and finding out who we really are. So I wanted to wrap this up in a broad way by calling this blog Emotions and Spirituality, because I believe it's one and the same. I believe emotions are your spirit. When you hear of the mind, body, and spirit link and that it's all connected, I see emotions, your emotional being, that part of you, that emotional self, is your spirit. That it's the essence of who you are. It's beyond all the thinking and the socializing and the socialization that you've had and how you've been made to be a certain culture and see the world in a certain way. This goes beyond that. And this is something everybody has. We all are emotional beings. Some of us are traumatized and don't have much access to that emotional side of ourselves. But it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means it's not in our awareness and we don't really have that much control over it. And so we all have that emotional body. We all have core emotions, that fear and anger and sadness and disgust and shame and happiness, the 6 core ones. And under those core emotions come associated emotions, frustration and rage and pain and all those kinds of things. They're all part of us. We all feel every day. And the more we shut down from that feeling part of ourselves, the less control we have, the less connection with other people we are able to have, the less, and this is the most important part, the less connection we have with ourselves. And the less connection we have with ourselves, and the further and further away from who we really are, what we really want to say, who we really want to be, and the further we drift away from that, the more unhappy and the more discontent and uncomfortable and miserable we are going to be, because we are not living our truth, our authenticity, and who we really are. So when it comes to being spiritual, in my opinion, it is not about a religion. It's not about an organized, structured process that a religion sometimes has, where you have a hierarchy and clergy or whatever it is, and people tell you how to interpret the Bible or any source of the scripture that you have in the religion. You know, we are indoctrinated in a way because there are people telling us how to be spiritual. But really, spirituality is a personal, individual thing, and it's so different for each and every one of us. There is no similarity. And similarly to how we see emotions, we all have sadness, anger, fear, all of that, but how we experience it will depend on so many things. It'll depend on our experiences in the world, our personality, our temperament, our family, our culture, our environment, our biology and our biological makeup. It's so dependent on everything that makes us unique, us individuals. That's how we see the world. That's what formulates our perceptions, how we make sense of the world, how we interpret things coming to us, what people say to us, what people are wearing, and how we feel about people, how we trust certain situations and people. That all comes from our sense of interpreting and perceiving our environment and the people in it. And if that is largely driven by our unconscious, if we don't have access to our emotions, and we don't understand how we truly feel about certain situations or why we are feeling the way we are feeling, then we are just driven by things that are seemingly out of our control because they are out of our awareness. So, spirituality is about bringing that all close together again. Your mind, the thoughts you're thinking, the conscious awareness of your environment, our brains, how we think and make sense of the world, our physical bodies, how we are in the world physically, how we put ourselves out there to other people, how we take up space, how we enter space, how we feel physically. Are we tired? Are we carrying ourselves in a certain way? How are we feeding ourselves? How are we nurturing and looking after ourselves? Are we taking care of our physical needs? And then the one very neglected area, I would say, in the world at large is your emotional self. How you really feel. Not that part of you that's so caught up in worrying about how other people see you, what other people think of you, but how you feel regardless of the consequences of how people are going to think of you, how you're going to fit in and belong. Because we have these conflicting needs, and a lot of our needs are driven by unmet needs from childhood. So when we have unmet needs, for instance, when we were really little and we were scared or we were sad and no one comforted us or no one soothed us and no one reassured us, we had to learn coping mechanisms to soothe and reassure ourselves. And these, when you're little, aren't always the most adaptive. They're not always the best coping mechanisms. Lashing out and being all tough and angry, for instance, that protects you for a while, but that also prevents you from intimate relationships, from having long-standing relationships, because you always seem to mess them up and you don't know why, because you've got this big tough shell and you don't know what to do with it. You might even have gotten to that point where you know you've got these walls up and these barriers, but you can't seem to shift them and you don't know why. It's because you have an unhealthy relationship with those core emotions associated to the first experience you had of feeling this way. And so it's about nurturing that part of yourself. Being spiritual is about honoring your needs and working through every part of yourself, not just the good parts, not just the happy parts, not just the parts where you feel strong and competent, but the vulnerable and the wounded parts of yourself, the not so great parts of yourself, the flawed bits, as you would see them, to start finding acceptance for all parts of you, as you are right now, without needing to always change, to accept yourself as you are. That is the practice of spirituality, to reach your authenticity, to reach your truth, to be able to speak your truth no matter who your truth involves, no matter what your truth is, to have a voice, to be heard, to express yourself, to get what you deserve, to be with people who value you for who you are. That is spirituality. That is honoring yourself and how you want to connect with things outside of us, Source or God or our guides or angels and all of that. That is your individual choice. That is what feels right to you. So if you are Christian or Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim or Jewish or whatever denomination you choose to associate with, or none at all, if you want to call yourself a New Age spiritualist or just spiritual, or just someone who believes there's something out there but you're just not quite sure what that is, whatever that is, that doesn't take away from your practice of spirituality, which is bringing yourself into your truth, into alignment, making friends with those emotions, understanding them not just with a label, but the message and the benefit behind each emotion, learning how to recognize that in your body, learning how to recognize that in how you're experiencing it, how you're expressing it, to get objective and look at yourself from the outside and not get so wrapped up in your ego, in that part of you that is so hurt and wounded and betrayed, to know that all these feelings are reflections of what's been triggered off inside yourself. It's something going on for you that needs exploring, that needs healing. Every time you feel terrible, it's an opportunity for healing, for bringing yourself closer into your authenticity, into alignment, your mind, your body, and your spirit, your heart. That space, that felt sense, that is where all the magic happens. So that's my take on how important emotions are in spirituality. In fact, I think they are spirituality. And my message in Tackle the Feelings Before the Behavior is to teach you how to get in touch with those emotions and have a deeper understanding on how they work for you and how they don't work for you, and how to make changes in your life based on this understanding of emotions, so that you can release your pain and your trauma and not carry it around inside you anymore. And the more you release, the more you heal, and the more space there is for happiness, for that authenticity, for that alignment, for that spiritual side of yourself, which you all have access to, no matter how damaged, no matter how traumatized. There is a way out and there is hope. And I believe with all my heart and soul that emotions sit at the heart of healing. I really do. So I hope that's been helpful or interesting or got your cogs turning a bit. That's my belief. Take it or leave it. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week ahead. Bye.